rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
Good Wednesday morning, everybody. It's the Georgia Show. I'm Jake Rowe. He's Palmer Toms. We are from DawgsHQ and got a little bit of a loaded show today. Here's what we got going on. We've got, we're going to discuss kind of the odds that came out yesterday, or earlier this week, with point spreads, Carson Beck's Heisman odds. We're going to dig into that and maybe play a little game with it. Ultimately, we're also going to knock out and talk about Georgia's home schedule and maybe dig into that. And then also Jesse Simonton over at On3 Sports has a position series that he has been working on, discussing the position units for each one. And he's 4 deep into that now, and Georgia's got a pretty strong showing thus far. But what's up with you, PT?
Nah, nothing much. I'm back home in Nashville for a little bit. Got a birthday on Monday, so celebrating with the family. Going to be here for the weekend, and yes, it's Wednesday, and yes, it's that time of year where we can take the show on the road and do our work from pretty much wherever we want. So
yeah, I drove about 11 and a half, 12 hours in one day yesterday. I went down, spoke to the Camden County Bulldog Club, swung through Pearson to see my folks before doing that. And, went over there. Man, that was so much fun. Micah Morris, Georgia offensive lineman, was there. Had a chance to catch up with him. What a good dude. I think now's a good time to remind everybody that kid is he's not 21 years old yet. He turns 21 in August. And he's already graduated from the University of Georgia. So he has already gotten his degree in sociology. And we were working on his post-grad work. So an impressive.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it totally is, especially whenever you got people like me spending 7 years in college. They do not call us doctors. All right, so, Palmer, yesterday we both wrote about it. DraftKings came out with Carson Beck's plus 900 line as the co-favorite for the Heisman. But we also saw point spreads. Give me the rundown there.
Yeah, so there are 7 games that have point spreads out. Georgia-Clemson, Georgia's a 13.5-point favorite. Georgia-Bama, Georgia's a 4.5-point favorite. Georgia-Auburn, 24-point favorite. Georgia-Texas, 1.5-point favorite. Georgia-Florida, emphasis on the order there, 22 points for Georgia. Georgia-Mississippi, Georgia-Ole Miss, 7. Georgia-Tennessee, 17.5. So dogs are favorites in all 7.
You were telling me Georgia's going to lose at least 3 of those games. Which 3 were you talking about when you told me Georgia was going to lose 3 of those?
I think they will lose one of them. But
Palmer did not tell me that, by the way. I just wanted to give him a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, I see Evan Grimes in the chat saying, what he's hammering. We'd love to hear what y'all have to say about these spreads. Jake, I mean, what are your thoughts? I do think Georgia's going to lose one of those, but
oh yeah, I mean, I think there's a loss in there probably. But the funny thing is I've gone into every football season the past few years, Palmer. And I may have gone into it the 2020 season, and some of it's been justified. You can look at an entire schedule and say, I think there's a loss in there, but then you go game by game and you go, where is it at? Where is it at as far as the matchup goes? And I mean, again, it's a really good program to do this with. I've talked myself out of trying to run down the loss in every season. I think I've predicted Georgia go undefeated, 3 straight years. I've only been wrong twice. So I wasn't wrong last year because I didn't pick the SEC championship game before the season started. So I don't know, man. It's kind of tough. I definitely think that the loss comes from the big 3, and those 3 are the ones I feel like we probably need to talk about the most. Georgia at Ole Miss, Georgia at Texas, Georgia at Alabama. I've just set them all in jacked up order. I guess in completely backed up.
Reverse
order. Reverse order. But so which one of those, Palmer, do you like? Because you got Georgia at Alabama at minus 4.5. And we're going to take these ATS. We're going to take them against the spread. UGA at Texas at minus 1.5, and then UGA at Ole Miss minus 7.5. Which bet?
Just 7 there. Just 7.
Just 7. Sorry. No hook, but just the betting line, and you can go for or against, right? You can take Georgia or the home team in those games. What's your best bet there? Which one do you like the most?
Well, I mean, I'll go on record, and I might have already done this. I think I did pre-spring. I think Georgia loses to Texas, but against the spread, I like Georgia 4.5 at Alabama. I've got a really weird feeling about that game, that this is the year that we see Georgia not even shake the Alabama monkey, because obviously they beat them in that national championship. But I just think that without Nick Saban there, there's less going on in Kirby Smart's mind. I mean, that is no disrespect to Kalen DeBoer. I think that he's going to do a really good job at Alabama. I don't know that they have the talent. I think we saw that last year. Georgia was a more talented team in that SEC championship game and just didn't execute. And I think obviously the injuries to banged upness of Bowers and McConkey played a part in that. But so I like that Georgia 4.5.
I don't think there's any disrespect to Kalen DeBoer. I think you got some disrespect for Kirby Smart there. You basically just said Nick Saban's all up in Kirby Smart's brain, which I guess he kind of.
Are you denying that? Are you saying that he's not?
I said, I'm sorry, we're breaking up. We need to end the show. I mean, yeah, I would agree with that. I think maybe Georgia maneuvered itself in some of those situations. What was crazy though is I got to thinking about that Alabama game this past year, and I don't want to go too crazy of a rabbit trail here, but I got to thinking about that Alabama game last year and the SEC championship game. Georgia didn't coach its best game. Georgia didn't play its best game. Georgia had made the critical mistake in the game. Georgia had a call go against them in the game. They had they lost a starter 2 series into the game, and they had 2 other starters that were not full speed.
Not close to it.
Yeah, not even really close to
I mean,
speed.
you could they probably had more than just 2. I mean, because think about Kamari Lassiter was banged up throughout that season.
Yeah, I would say 3 with Smile Munn, and then you throw Ra Thomas, who didn't play at all, in there. Like, they were missing a lot of guys, and they lost the game by 3 points. There are no moral victories or anything like that, but
and they miss a field goal. I mean, yeah. I know you said that they have the crucial moment, which you might have been talking about the field goal, but you probably were talking about the fumble. So
yeah, and they missed a field goal. So there was a lot that went wrong in that game, and Georgia still had a chance to win it. So I'm not sitting here saying, like, I don't think Georgia outcoached it or really hurt itself as far as, like, mentally in that game. It's just always going to happen like that. There's a reason it's tough to win 30 games in a row. I would say, I like the Texas one more. I like the Texas one. I like that tight line because I do think when I look at Texas's roster, obviously you bring back a quarterback like Quinn Ewers, really, really big. And there's a reason Georgia is going to be, get a lot of love as the number 1 team in the country. It brought Carson Beck back. Well, Quinn Ewers was also really good last year, but I almost look at Quinn Ewers and where's Xavier Worthy? Where's AD Mitchell? Where is their number 3 receiver, the slot guy that I really liked watching play? I can't remember his name. I think he wore number 16. He got drafted later on in the NFL draft. Like, they wanted Juice Wells. They wanted to get some players. That's the one. Honestly, I almost kind of feel like betting Georgia against Texas and then betting Ole Miss against Georgia would be the 2 that I kind of like the most there, because I just don't know what to expect out of Alabama. I just have no idea. I feel like it's such a wild card.
See, I think I'm in that wild card situation with Ole Miss with how many transfers they took in, and and I do think that obviously that game coming in November, we'll see a little bit more of a fine-tuned version of the Rebels. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's not, coaching against them. Jordan Whittingham is the receiver, or Jordan Whittington is the receiver from Texas.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That was a tough cat, man. That was like their version of Kearis Jackson, maybe a little bit better player.
Yeah. But, I mean, remember who they picked up out of the transfer portal?
Isaiah Bond. Yeah, but, I mean, listen, Isaiah Bond can fly, right? I mean, Isaiah Bond is a very fast kid. He's not Xavier Worthy fast. He's not AD
Well, nobody
Mitchell
is.
fast. I mean,
Maybe Arian Smith is.
Is he going to run? Is he going to go run? Do you think Isaiah Bond runs a 4.35 at the combine? Maybe he does, but ultimately it kind of comes down to I don't know. I mean, tell me at the end of the season, like they're going to replace Xavier Worthy and AD Mitchell with Isaiah Bond. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just don't. I think they're quite as dangerous as they were this past year. And on top of that, look at what they lost up front to the NFL on the defensive line.
That would be the bigger concern
Yeah.
to me. I mean, that to me is the bigger concern. They also got Silas Bolden from Oregon State, 750 yards this past season, 54 catches. So good player there. I know that they got a Houston receiver. They went out and got guys. Now, are they Xavier Worthy and AD Mitchell? I don't know. But I think I just have a lot more confidence in Steve Sarkisian as an offensive mind and his ability to get receivers open than, just put a lot of confidence in that.
Sure.
Hey, he's a guy that does this. He does offense. He does it well. Now, I mean, we haven't seen him at Texas in the SEC. Now, I guess we saw Texas against Alabama the past 2 seasons, and they, certainly more than held their own there. But yeah, I mean, to Henry's point here about Georgia owning Ole Miss, I do think that there's probably something to that. 7 points is, if it was 7.5, if it was 6.5, I think I would feel comfortable with Georgia. 7 points is a tough line.
Yeah, I'm not.
I don't know what Ole Miss is going to.
When I said I might take the Ole Miss side of that, I'm not saying I think Georgia loses the game. I just think 7 points is a lot of points to lay on the road, and I've been to that stadium, and Georgia was obviously a very different team the last time I was at that stadium. By the way, the Grove's overrated. I want everybody to know this. The Grove is dusty, it's dirty, it's nasty, and it's not cool. Okay. So, Ole Miss fan, come at me. I don't care. I think everything else about your town is pretty awesome, though. I mean, I think that the campus is beautiful, but the Grove on Saturday is pretty. It's kind of disgusting.
Wasn't that a noon kick, though?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, and that's an 11 o'clock kick there.
Yeah,
so
the Grove sucks.
Maybe that plays a factor. Though.
If you're trying to tell me that it's the greatest place in college football, coming from that position, it's so further down of like not being the greatest place in college football that it almost sucks a little bit.
Now, I mean, completely different conversation. Where do you think has good, like maybe the best tailgating scene?
It's a good question. I mean,
I like Auburn's tailgating scene.
Place that's grown on me is like Knoxville, that area right around the stadium. That like kind of the
you won't ever hear me say that.
It's just grown on me a little bit. Even though you could tell last year going into the Georgia-Tennessee game that Tennessee fans knew they were about to get their ass kicked because they weren't out and about at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12, noon for that one. I actually rewatched that game here recently, and boy, was that a pumping. But yeah, I don't necessarily think Georgia is going to go to Ole Miss and lose, but I do think that Ole Miss has the ability to make it a pretty tight game. I'm also interested to see, and I think Georgia catches a little bit of a break playing Ole Miss in November, because while Ole Miss did some good things to their roster and kind of improved their front line starters on both sides of the ball, I still think that they're a program that lacks depth. I don't think they've recruited well enough at the high school to bring the depth into play, and we'll see where they're at come November. Palmer, I got a question for you, though. If I give you those 3 lines, all right, I give you Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss, and then I give you Carson Beck's plus 900 to win the Heisman, which one do you feel the best about? Does that change your answer there?
If I've got $100 and
right.
I'm putting it on any of those, I'm putting it on the Carson Beck one because, I mean,
Daddy just got golf clubs, huh?
Yeah. No, I mean, you've just got there's good value in that. I mean, you got to remember you're betting any of those spreads at -110. I
Yeah.
love a plus money bet. And so I think Carson, has a really good shot to be among the Heisman, favorites. I mean, I know we're talking about DraftKings, but FanDuel has him as the favorite. They did have, both him and Quinn Ewers at plus 750 and have kept Carson there, but moved Quinn Ewers to that plus 900 that FanDuel or that DraftKings
You
has.
want me to tell you? Let me tell you a way to make some money here. Here's what you do. Like if you really believe Carson Beck's got a great chance to win the Heisman, put 100 on each of those because he's going to need to win 2 of 3 to win the Heisman.
Yeah, no,
and I mean, we can talk about spreads and stuff like. Just take about $100 and put it on the money line for each of them, and then put 100 on Carson Beck and win the Heisman, and maybe instead of getting some game improvement. Strixons, you can maybe buy yourself a really nice set of PHGs. You know what I'm saying?
I also wonder that there's so much time between now and when Georgia plays Texas, even though we just booked our flights yesterday.
Yeah.
I think that number is close enough that I think that at some point between now and then, we're going to see Georgia as an underdog in that game.
That's interesting. I don't know that I agree
Texas,
with that.
What if Texas goes on the road and beats Michigan week 2? Maybe Georgia doesn't look, maybe Georgia doesn't cover the 13.5 against Clemson. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I think that there's a really good possibility that you can get a better line on that 1.5.
Yeah, I mean,
at some point, I don't know that that's the case with that Ole Miss line, and I don't know. Maybe that moves down to 6.5, which is a better number than 7, especially given the kind of takes the push out of it. I think that you're not getting a better number than 4.5 with that Alabama game.
Gotcha. No, I'm with you on that.
I think that if you can maybe wait and see with that Texas game.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Jake, I had a question that came to mind here. So you said ass kickings in Tennessee. I look at those four other spreads: Georgia Clemson, Georgia Auburn, Georgia Florida, Georgia Tennessee, all double digits. Which one of those numbers surprises you the most? Do any of them surprise you?
I mean, listen, I know Florida's a little bit of a dumpster fire, but my eyeballs do not really understand seeing Georgia minus 22 against Florida going into a season.
Did you think Georgia would be a bigger favorite over Florida or Auburn? Because that's the one that stands out to me. I know that game's at 24. 24.
I don't know.
I know that game's in Athens.
That's a big number. That is a big
number.
That is a big number. All right, we do before we got something else we want to discuss on this, but before we do that, I want to talk about our partner Andy Ludicky over at myperfectfranchise.net. Listen, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what field you're in or what you're doing. You have a chance, and everybody does. It's the American dream to be an entrepreneur and to take your kind of fate and your career and put it in your own hands. And Andy Ludicky can help you with that. Andy Ludicky is an experienced entrepreneur. He has been involved in multiple businesses. I'm sorry. Coffee trying to hang around on me this morning. Andy has also been a part of different franchises, different investors, and different roles, and he can help you. He's got a thorough consultation process that is he gives you his one-on-one attention, and it's of no cost to you. There is absolutely no cost to you. You can hit Andy up at myperfectfranchise.net and reach out to him, and he can help you realize your dream as a potential entrepreneur. Be your own boss. Take control of your own situation. Andy can help you do that. So check out Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. The name's Andy Ludicky, and we appreciate his partnership on the Georgia Show. Palmer, before we get off the schedule stuff, I want to ask you this. What's Georgia's marquee home game next year, if you really look at it? Listen, let's not decry this too much, Georgia fans, because I know that the home schedule compared to the away schedule sucks. You're getting paid back on that in 2025. But,
and some.
Yeah. But what's Georgia's marquee game on the road? I mean, at home in 2024?
At home. I think that Tennessee game has the potential, and I think that maybe the divisionless model takes a little bit away from that because I think
Yeah.
that that game being that late in the season, it's Georgia's last regular SEC home game, last SEC game because they've closed with UMass and Georgia Tech, all three of those at home, so they will go home to close out the regular season. I think it's that Tennessee game because I think that I'm very interested to see what Nico, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, Amaliva or whatever, what he does at quarterback and the strides that they take. That wide receiver room in Knoxville was not that healthy last year. Obviously, losing Brew McCoy by the time that I guess by midseason, by the time that they played Georgia, they definitely didn't have him. I'm interested to see the steps that Tennessee takes because we all remember how big that game was 2 years ago. And obviously there were SEC East, SEC championship game implications there. I don't know that we're going to have that this year because there's not the East up for grabs. And I do think that Texas schedule is pretty light where you're probably looking at Texas as a favorite to make the SEC championship game. But I think that Tennessee game has a lot of potential to be an exciting. It's that perfect weather, late November. It's a crispness in the air. That Tennessee game could be the marquee one to me.
Yeah, I lean that way too. The only other one I think is even in competition is Auburn. Just because of the rivalry aspect. But when you look at Tennessee's got, I feel like a lot more upside at the quarterback position. I think Tennessee's got the ability to get a lot better as the season goes on. I love what Auburn added at receiver in this past class, and they've helped themselves, and I believe a little bit in the transfer portal there too. But man, I'm just got to see it a little bit more out of Peyton Thorne, and listen, I've heard some wonderful things about that guy as a person. Like I've heard that he, about him as an individual, that he's a really good dude, and has done a lot of good things. Kind of off the field, but at the same time, I just kind of got to see it on the field because boy was he bad at Auburn last year. I don't even know what they call the Plains. That's what they call that place. By the way, you want to talk about one of the places I dislike the most in the SEC, Auburn. Auburn sucks.
It's got a decent tailgating scene to it, though.
I don't care anything about the tailgating scene. They lose all points with that press box.
True.
The only thing good about that press box is it's clean. Otherwise,
And they've got a very nice staff, Jake. They sent you back your tripod.
They did send me back my tripod. Yeah.
Does that get any points for Auburn?
No, not at all. But yeah. So that's the only other one that could challenge it. So I think that's that the home schedule is just so blah. Like it's not.
But we thought that 2 years ago, and then Georgia ended up with 2 top 10 matchups. I mean,
yeah,
Arkansas and Kentucky.
And I think Tennessee's the only team that even has.
I guess that was more than 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
but that Tennessee game. I mean, we all had that.
We thought it this past year, and then you had ended up with Missouri and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get it.
It routinely surprises us.
Tennessee might be the only team that has a chance there. Like I think Tennessee might be the only team. I mean,
to be ranked,
maybe
to make it Auburn could be ranked.
Nah, I mean maybe Auburn. I guess kinda.
Does Georgia?
I'll tell you this, I think Georgia Tech might have a better chance of being ranked than Auburn. By the time they play.
So if I said over under 1.5 ranked games in Athens, you would take the under?
I think I might take the over. I look at Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech, you return a quarterback. They can bring back some weapons on offense. I thought they showed some good progression there in year one under Brent Key. I think Georgia Tech may have a chance to be ranked at that point in the year playing in ACC schedule. So that's one that I think might be there.
Give me UMass and Andy Isabella being ranked.
All right, so let's move on to the last thing we want to talk about today, and that is these position rankings by Jesse Simonton. I don't want to spend too much time on these because I don't want to at any point come across as I'm being critical. It's totally subjective. I may disagree with Jesse on a couple of these, but ultimately that's not the point. The point is Georgia ranked number 4 at quarterback. Like I said, I think they should be a little bit higher there. Number 2 at running back. They ranked number 1 at tight end without Brock Bowers. This just blows my mind. You can lose a player like that and still be ranked number 1. Are you telling me that the margin between Georgia and the next team was greater than Brock Bowers? Is what you're telling me last year in the tight end room? That's it was even greater than. That's unbelievable if you think about it. And then they are number 6 in the wide receiver rankings, which were released today. They're going to be top 5, Palmer, in offensive line.
They should be number 1, probably.
They very much might be number 1. Georgia got a juggernaut on offense. I mean, is that what we're talking about here?
I mean, I think so. I think that, and I kind of wrote about this week. ESPN did an overreactions piece of, kind of dispelling the overreactions of, hey, Georgia's offense isn't going to be this because they don't have those guys. They don't have Brock Bowers. They don't have Lab McCon. They've got a lot of talent in that offensive room. I mean, and a quarterback like Carson Beck just makes that talent that much better. I think that they can be. I think that they've got a shot to definitely a shot to be the number 1 offense in college football this year. And I don't know how we're going to define that because I know that it gets subjective. Are you doing total yards? Are you doing points? What are you doing? Georgia was top 5 in both total, scoring offense and total offense last year. I think that they are going to be top 5 again this year. And I'm going to say they were 5-5. I'm going to say that they finish higher than 5 in at least one of those this year.
Okay.
That may not be all that bold of a prediction.
No, I think definitely that Jesse's rankings kind of outline just how deep Georgia is offensively. See, that's what gets me is like, the talent they added via the portal and the talent they kind of coming of age and the guys they held on to. Because I can tell you right now, man, we may not have heard a bunch about it and there may not have been a bunch of reporting on it, but I can guarantee you that keeping Dylan Bell, keeping Dominic Lovett, keeping Ra Thomas on the roster this year was not easy. I can guarantee you it wasn't easy. That there were teams, tampering and coming after those guys without a fact. And listen, do I think Georgia probably did the same for other players? Absolutely. I'm not trying to blame it on anybody else, say anybody else is doing anything that Georgia's not doing. But I think holding on to those guys, I think, holding on to a guy like Ernest Green, yeah, I'm sure there were teams that made passes at him with him being from across the country. Listen, if you ever played NCAA football and you get down to your recruiting situation and you're trying to find a diamond in the rough and you just start searching your state and you start searching this and all these different things, like these schools do the same thing in a way. They go through and they identify. Could be a quarterback. This could be a quarterback. That's my saying about every athlete, especially after you evaluate them. But they look at these rosters and they see guys, oh man, well, he's 1,000 miles away from home playing his college ball. Maybe we need to kind of reach out to his people and see, what he feels, how he feels about that, and so, but Georgia did such a great job, I feel like, hanging on to key offensive players this off season. Like, I can't think of, I'm having a hard time thinking of one that they lost. Andrew Paul may be the closest thing to losing a key offensive player this offseason. And that's kind of been, Palmer, it's been the first time in a couple of years. They lost Jermaine Burton after the 2021 season, lost A.D. Mitchell after the 2022 season. They had some pieces to pick up after that year. They bring back more continuity, I feel like, and they almost had to because they lost Brock and Ladd to the draft, and Marcus Rosenby-Jackson, who's an underrated piece of that whole thing. But I tell you what, man, I'm sky high on Dylan Bell, sky high on Dominic Lovett and what they bring back on offense. Trevor Etienne, have heard some more positive buzz about him since spring practice ended. Love that offensive line and how versatile they are. I tell you what, Tomahawk Dawgs brings it up, says, where's the weakness on this team? I
Just
don't
not
know. There
on
probably
offense.
will be one, and it'll probably show itself via injury, where there's an injury here, an injury there. Like last year, I felt like Georgia's biggest weakness was inside linebacker, and it was because Georgia had some injuries at inside linebacker. But right now, I don't see a weakness on offense, and honestly, I think Georgia's in better shape to absorb an injury or two at receiver and offensive line than pretty much any team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, you go back and you look at Jesse's rankings from last year. He had, for these same 4 positions, he had Georgia at number 6 for quarterbacks. They are now number 4. Number 7 for running backs. They are now number 3. Number 6 for receivers. They are still number 6. And number 1 for tight ends. And they are still number 1 without Brock Bowers. I think that just goes to show the potential for this offense to be something, to be as special, if not more special, than last year's unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously it starts with the guy at the top, and that's that. I mean, it's Carson Beck's show, and
I also wonder, and Jake, this is just something that came to mind here. He's ranking the room.
Yeah.
Georgia Carson Beck's probably not the number 4 quarterback in the country.
He's definitely not. Jesse even said,
we just said that this is the number
1 quarterback in college football.
And we just said he's the favorite or co-favorite for the Heisman Trophy. So keep that in mind, guys.
Yeah, for sure. So, getting him back was obviously massive. You wonder, hey, how is it gonna affect him kind of going into his second season at starter when he's got the job won and can kind of prepare like that? I made the point last night when I spoke with the folks down in Camden County. Georgia was struggling. I think close to in the 90s in red zone offense in terms of touchdown percentage about 5-6 games into the season. They ended up in the top 25 because Beck and Bobo kind of came together as the year went along, and Georgia became a better, became a really good, an elite third down offense and a really good red zone offense. Can they build on that? And if they do, I think Georgia's going to achieve everything it wants to achieve. We will achieve our goal of being back with you guys on Sunday for the Georgia show. We will not have another Georgia show during this week, but we will be back on Sunday to discuss the happenings of the weekend. Probably be talking some recruiting. We'll probably try to catch up with our man Rusty Mansell, and we'll have all that. But for this episode of the Georgia show, that's it. Y'all take it easy.